in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I unexpectedly spent the night with a distinguished guest at my master's banquet. The disaster struck when I brought a bowl of sobering soup into the room. Before I could understand what was happening, I was pulled onto the bed. By morning, the man woke up. His handsome face darkened instantly, and he looked at me with cold eyes, asking in a deep voice, "Who am I?" It was clear that in the dim light of the previous night, he had not seen my face clearly and had simply mistaken me for someone else. I blinked and replied calmly, "I am called Ruby, a kitchen maid working at the hot spring estate." His expression stiffened slightly, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He closed his eyes for a moment as if he had finished calculating something, and said, "Fine, come with me." I hesitated slightly and said, "I work here as a kitchen maid, getting 300 copper coins a month, plus food and lodging. If I follow you, what work will I do? What is the pay?" His movement while putting on his clothes paused, and his voice deepened. "Still cooking but double the wages." I pulled the blanket up and sat, my eyes lighting up, unable to hide my joy. "You are truly generous." Unexpectedly, he suddenly moved closer, lifting my chin with one hand while placing the other on my bare shoulder. His eyes scrutinized me intently, as if he wanted to see through every inch of my skin. The smile on my lips slowly faded, and a sense of unease rose in my heart. This man's hand was rough, his knuckles full of calluses. He was obviously someone who practiced martial arts all year round. Being held by him for too long, the place where our skin touched began to feel indescribably itchy. Instinctively, I tilted my head to avoid him. He withdrew his hand and coughed lightly as if to hide his embarrassment. "Also, if you follow me, your wages will be 10 times higher." My eyes immediately brightened. "Then can I work in the kitchen during the day and sleep with you at night?" I quickly calculated in my head, 600 copper coins for being a kitchen maid, 3 silver taels for sleeping with him. That meant 3 silver taels and 600 copper coins a month. In a year, that would be over 43 silver taels, plus food and lodging. It was truly a godsend bargain. The corner of his eye twitched slightly. "Can you handle it?" I puffed out my chest confidently. "I am very responsible in my work. I guarantee neither side will be delayed." His gaze slowly drifted down, his voice dropping significantly. "Indeed, you have great capacity." I immediately realized there was something wrong with that look. It turned out that in my excitement earlier, the blanket had slipped down a little, revealing my skin. My face flushed hot, and I hurriedly reached out to cover myself. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "Are you very short of silver?" I grinned. Who would complain about having too much silver? The corners of his lips curled up. "As long as you serve this prince well, I won't let you suffer any loss." My heart skipped a beat. It turned out he was the distinguished guest from the banquet last night, and the most important one at that. My master was the Liu family, a wealthy merchant clan in Jiangnan with businesses stretching across the north and south. This year, the Liu family intended to expand into northern Mongolia and the northern nations. Master Lucas was entrusted with this heavy responsibility, and first, he had to clear the path with the nobility. Although northern Mongolia professed loyalty to the imperial court, its internal affairs were still autonomous under the Mongolian royal family. Just one word from the prince would be enough to influence major military and political matters, let alone the fate of a merchant guild. Therefore, Master Lucas had painstakingly organized a grand banquet, hoping only for a nod of approval. Last night, the wine party by the hot spring was joyous for both host and guest, but this morning, when Master Lucas saw me standing behind Prince Ethan, his triumphant look vanished instantly, and his face turned pale. I understood clearly why he was panicked. According to the original plan, the person accompanying Prince Ethan should have been a carefully trained beauty from Yangzhou, absolutely not an ordinary kitchen maid like me. Master Lucas bowed very low, his voice trembling, "Your Highness." Before he could finish his sentence, Prince Ethan supported his elbow, smiling and saying that he was very satisfied with me and wished to take me away. The gray face of Master Lucas immediately turned red with surprise and joy. Master Lucas hurriedly ordered people to pack my luggage, and fearing I would be lonely, he wanted Ah Zhu, my roommate, to follow and serve me. When Ah Zhu heard me recount the story, she jumped up in joy. "Oh my heavens, you didn't come back all night, I was worried to death. I didn't expect you to encounter such great luck." I smiled while packing my things. "It is indeed good luck, my yearly wages have increased 12 times. Ah Zhu laughed loudly. You really only know about silver. If the prince truly has eyes for you and later elevates you to a concubine, wouldn't that be a step into the heavens? Let's not discuss that. I pouted. I didn't have much luggage. Each of us just carried a small bundle and followed the housekeeper out. Ju glanced at Master Lucas, who was busily serving Prince Ethan, and suddenly whispered, "Master Lucas's expression is very strange today. It seems like something is wrong." I replied indifferently, "He is just blushing. The big deal is done. He must be overly excited." Prince Ethan did not take us to the royal palace but settled us in a residence named Water Villa, located in the east of Yun City. It was a 3-courtyard estate with a housekeeper to watch over it, errand boys to serve, and more than a dozen maids coming in and out. The scale was not large, but everything was complete, tidy, and private. Ju looked around, a hint of disappointment in her eyes. I, however, remained calm, as if I had expected this. From the moment I knew Prince Ethan's identity, I understood that I could not rightfully step into the position of a concubine. The royal house of Northern Mongolia and the imperial house of the empire had intermarried for generations. The current official wife of the Northern Mongolian prince was also Prince Ethan's biological mother, the current princess, royal. The reigning emperor had only one daughter, who had just turned 10 this year. Prince Ethan was 19, at an age when ordinary people would have children. He did not even have a side consort or a concubine. He only dared to hide a woman for bed, warming outside, absolutely unable to bring her back to the royal palace. These matters were all told by Mama Hassie at the Water Villa. After hearing this, Aju took a breath in fear and sighed, "Then for Ruby to be raised to a concubine, I'm afraid it won't be easy." Mama Hassie smiled kindly. "Not easy. But the prince has been a sentimental person since childhood. The young lady just needs to stay in her place and serve well. Wait until the princess gets married in the future. Naturally, there will be a place for her." I understood very well that these words were both guidance and a warning. It was a pity that both Mama Hassie and Aju guessed wrong. What I wanted was never a future or status, but real white silver. Of course, there was no need to say these things out loud. Therefore, I just smiled, showing that I was an obedient person who was easy to order around and had no ambition. The first night moving to Water Villa, Prince Ethan came to the main courtyard to find me to sleep. We had done this once last night, so I thought it wouldn't be difficult. Who knew that when he was sober, he would be much harder to serve? He wouldn't let me go, tormenting me until I was exhausted. I tried to accommodate him for 2 rounds, but in the end, I truly couldn't take it anymore and begged him to stop with a hoarse voice. Fortunately, he knew when to stop and didn't continue to act recklessly. He carried me to wash up and then let me lie down to rest. That sleep was strangely deep, heavy as if sinking to the bottom of the water, without any dreams. In my daze, I felt someone pushing me gently. "Wake up and eat something, or you'll be hungry." I buried my face in the blanket, pretending not to hear, but the person wouldn't give up and directly lifted the blanket. The dazzling light made me squint. When I adapted, I saw Prince Ethan, who had just returned from his morning practice, standing by the bed. He was tall and silent, and my consciousness immediately cleared. I suddenly remembered that I had left the Liu family's hot spring estate yesterday, so I sat up and asked immediately, "What time is it now?" "Early in the snake hour," he replied curtly. It was over. I had promised to wake up early to cook breakfast for him, but now there was only enough time to prepare lunch. My scalp went numb. Just as I lifted the blanket to jump out of bed, my legs went soft, and I fell directly to the ground in a sitting position. I clutched my lower abdomen, grimacing in pain, and my vision suddenly went dark. Prince Ethan immediately squatted down, frowning as he asked, "Let me see if you are injured anywhere." My face burned hot, and I hurriedly grabbed my skirt tightly, shaking my head repeatedly. "I'm fine, I just got out of bed too fast, I feel a little unwell." He withdrew his hand and said slowly, "Why the rush? I saved a pancake for you." I held onto the edge of the bed to stand up, unable to suppress my frustration. "I was supposed to prepare breakfast for you." He also stood up straight, a teasing look in his eyes. "Still remembering your kitchen maid wages?" My ears burned, and I replied with a serious face, "Just this once, there won't be a next time." He raised his eyebrows. "Suit yourself. But Ruby, don't lose the big for the small." Although his mouth criticized me for calculating every copper coin of wages, when he tasted the lunch I cooked, he nodded and smiled. "Not bad. 6 mace of silver is indeed shortchanging you. Let's raise it to 1 tael. 1 tael for cooking, 3 taels for sleeping, 4 taels a month. 48 taels a year, plus food and lodging." I like fair patrons like this the most. I happily put more food into his bowl, my eyes much gentler. Thank you, Prince Ethan. Just like that, the year I turned 18, I became the mistress of Prince Ethan Wu of Northern Mongolia, and also the kitchen maid in his external residence. That day, Prince Ethan left and did not appear for more than 10 days. I could not help but feel uneasy, afraid that he was bored and did not want to keep me anymore. Seeing this, Mama Hassi explained. The prince currently holds the position of deputy commander in the army. He often has to stay in the barracks to train soldiers and handle military affairs. If the Golden Horde Khanate of the barbarians makes a move to infringe on the south, he also has to lead the army on an expedition, so he is extremely busy. Hearing this, I felt relieved. More than 10 days passed. Every meal was cooked by my hands, and the people in Water Villa were gradually conquered by my skills. From being respectful but distant at first, everyone now called me Miss Ruby in a friendly manner. Today was the beginning of spring. As soon as I woke up and opened the door, I saw Aju standing outside, smiling with narrowed eyes, and asked, "Ruby, the errand boy has bought enough seasonal vegetables. When will we make spring pancakes?" I stepped forward and linked arms with her, heading towards the small kitchen together. There were already a few young maids in the kitchen, setting out some breakfast snacks. I glanced over. There was refreshing fruit porridge, steamed buns rolled with bamboo shoots, and grilled crispy shredded pickled melon. I conveniently reheated the plate of shredded boiled chicken prepared yesterday and fried a mixed vegetable dish. Then I called Aju and the young maids to sit and eat together. After breakfast, everyone started working. The vegetables were washed clean, and the water boiled furiously. I kneaded the dough with hot water, added sesame oil, and stirred it into a thick paste. I scooped a spoonful of batter and poured it onto the heated iron pan, using a broad bamboo stick to spread it evenly. A sizzling sound rang out. The batter met the heat and quickly set into a thin pancake. Golden spots appeared on the surface of the pancake, and the scent of wheat filled the kitchen. As soon as the pancake was lifted from the pan, it was snatched away by the people waiting. Aju stomped her foot, both amused and angry. "Ruby has been making them for a while, and you guys have eaten them all." Mama Hassi bit into a pancake that someone handed to her, pretending to be stern. "Aju is right. No fighting for food from now on. You must wait for the young lady to finish making the spring pancakes before eating. What is the point of eating just the pancake skin?" Everyone laughed loudly, saying yes with their mouths, but their feet refused to leave the kitchen. Just then, a cold voice rang out, completely out of place amidst the laughter. "Do you really treat her as a cook?" The laughter suddenly stopped. I turned my head and saw everyone hurriedly scattering, revealing Prince Ethan standing there, his face unhappy. The people in Water Villa were so embarrassed that their limbs went stiff, and they almost wanted to kneel to bow. Mama Hassi was just about to speak when I quickly scooped up the freshly made pancake and held it out in front of Prince Ethan. "Prince Ethan, taste it. It is very fragrant even on its own." He frowned slightly but did not scold me. He took the pancake first. It is as thin as a cicada's wing, and when separated, 2 layers could clearly be seen. The corners of his lips quirked up slightly. "This is the first time I've seen a thin pancake that has 2 layers like this." I continued working by the stove while replying, "It is a method from my hometown." Everyone found it strange, so they gathered around to watch. "Oh." He did not show any objection. I took the opportunity to say, "Since you have arrived, I will make a few more dishes. You go back to the main courtyard and wait. Standing here will make you smell like kitchen smoke." He glanced around once, and finally, without getting angry, turned and left. The atmosphere immediately lightened. Everyone felt as if they had been granted amnesty. They hurriedly dispersed to work, not daring to joke anymore. I quickly finished making the spring pancakes, prepared more oven-roasted salted meat, some fried vegetables, and sweet sauce to go with them. Remembering that Prince Ethan had always liked meat, I made an additional dish of sliced lamb stewed with green beans, and shredded pork cooked with pickled cabbage. Originally, I didn't think he would visit, so the amount of spring pancakes was not enough. I had to heat up some more steamed buns, so that everyone in Water Villa would have a share. After finishing the preparations, I ordered the young maids to bring the food to the main courtyard, while I went into the inner room to change my clothes, fearing that the smell of kitchen smoke on my dress would affect Prince Ethan's appetite. When I finished changing and came out, I saw Prince Ethan sitting and waiting. The chopsticks in front of him had not yet moved. I hurriedly sat down and handed him the ebony chopsticks. I made you wait a long time, you must be very hungry. Next time if you want to come over, just send someone to notify me in advance, I will prepare earlier. He took the chopsticks and responded softly, Prince Ethan looked handsome and unrestrained, seemingly indifferent to worldly matters, but in reality, he was a person who extremely valued rules. While eating, he almost didn't open his mouth to say a word. Only when the bowls and chopsticks were tidied up did he slowly speak. During the days I wasn't here, were they all like that? No distinction of hierarchy, casually crossing the line. I paused slightly. Not exactly. I am originally a kitchen maid in the estate. Eating together is also common sense. His eyes darkened. You are my person, a kitchen maid who serves only me alone. What right do they have? I pursed my lips and said softly, Prince Ethan, don't think like that. I inherently like cooking. I don't find it tiring. Before I could finish, he interrupted. I will hire a few more chefs. If you want to cook, then cook. If you are tired, then rest. My heart trembled slightly. Hiring more chefs was indeed a good thing for me. The refusal that just touched my lips was silently swallowed down. Put that matter aside, I'll change the subject. Is the prince free to visit again today? He replied, it is my turn for rotational leave. I can stay in the city for 10 days, but tonight I have to return to the royal palace. I will come back tomorrow. Yes. I nodded, already starting to calculate the menu for the coming days in my heart. Ah, that's right. He suddenly changed his tone and asked as if unintentionally, do you know that Master Lucas has died? I was pouring tea for him. Hearing that, my hand shook slightly. Why is that? How did he die? His eyes were deep and rippleless. After the banquet that day, he fell ill for more than 10 days and then passed away. I placed the teacup in front of him, a look of regret on my face. Master Lucas had just opened a trade route with northern Mongolia, and was at a time when he wanted to show his ability, yet he died young. It is truly heaven being jealous of talented people. Prince Ethan lifted the teacup, looked down, and asked another question. Do you think he truly died of illness? Could it be he didn't? I looked up, looking surprised. Perhaps you hoped he died of illness? A vague question full of hidden meaning. I shook my head. I didn't hope so. He looked at me, his eyes revealing a flash of surprise. I laughed, my voice calm. Prince Ethan does not know. At the Liu family, I specialized in cooking medicinal food for health preservation, which was praised for making the body strong, energy abundant, and prolonging life if eaten for a long time. Yet Master Lucas, who frequently consumed my medicinal food, died early. Prince Ethan's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, locking onto me, looking until goosebumps rose on my back. After a long while, the coldness in his eyes gradually retracted, and his voice became indifferent. I'm afraid you have to be disappointed. Almost all the famous doctors in Yin City went to see him, and it was indeed an acute illness. I let out a soft sound and sighed, pretending to be regretful. Is that so? It seems that medicinal food for health preservation is just a deceptive rumor. In the future, I should do it less. He took a sip of tea, not commenting on right or wrong. When leaving, he suddenly reached into his robe, took out a small porcelain bottle, and threw it to me. What is this? I caught it and looked down carefully. Scar removal ointment. Look at your hands. I looked down and indeed saw several red marks and small scratches on the back of my hand. I waved my hand and laughed. In the kitchen, oil splatters and knife nicks are normal, not worth worrying about. He suddenly made his voice stern. Your skin is smooth, warm, and flawless, worthy of careful care. If it gets ruined because of cooking, I won't let you step into the kitchen for another half step in the future. Ah, so that was it. I thought my appearance had something special, but it turned out he had his eyes on this skin. Understanding the key point, I obediently replied, understood, I will be careful. Prince Ethan had a rotational leave of 10 days, 6 of which he stayed at Water Villa. During the day I cooked for him, and at night I served him in bed. One person doing 2 jobs was truly not easy. Seeing that he had to return to the barracks tomorrow, I took out a small notebook and asked him about his feelings regarding the food over the past few days. He glanced at the notebook and raised his eyebrows. You know how to read? I nodded. I was taught at home when I was young. He took the notebook. On the cover were 4 words I wrote myself: Water Villa menu, the handwriting neat and clear. He chuckled lightly. The handwriting is just ordinary. I was neither angry nor blushing. I am not a calligrapher. As long as it is clear and easy to read, it is fine. He shook his head, as if lamenting my lack of ambition, then flipped through the pages, reading and laughing at the same time. Is this how you record a menu? I leaned over and pointed to the page he was opening. This is the recipe for winter melon stuffed with meat, and below are the comments after eating. Mama Hasi said it was a bit bland. Master Lucas criticized the winter melon for being too soft. Aju said the meat filling, being 2 parts fat and 8 parts lean, was a bit dry. I recorded it all so I could adjust it to be better next time. He flipped to the back. Why haven't I eaten these dishes? I replied. Everyone has different tastes. Only the dishes that the majority praise as delicious will I serve on your table. The corners of his lips curled up. I am not picky, nor do I have any taboos. You don't need to waste such effort. I took back the notebook and picked up a brush to write. No, eating must be done with moderation. In the military camp, or on the battlefield, you can eat carelessly, but once you are home, every meal must be worthy. I looked up and asked further, so, are there any dishes from these past few days that need adjustment? He tilted his head and thought for a moment, then said, the shrimp and meat steamed buns were a bit bland. The stir-fried bird's nest with chicken was too oily. The tofu stewed with chestnuts wasn't flavorful enough. The other dishes were very stable. I carefully noted down each dish, promising to adjust them to suit his taste next time. Thinking that he had to return to the barracks tomorrow, that night he was particularly unrestrained. I couldn't hold up anymore, so I could only wrap my arms around his neck, using the old trick, and begged for mercy with a sobbing voice. He reached out and pinched the soft flesh of my waist hard, his voice carrying obvious dissatisfaction. In the kitchen, you aren't afraid of burns, oil splatters, or knife cuts, so why are you so weak in bed? I sniffled and retorted, it's not the same. I like being in the kitchen. You mean you don't like being in bed? He narrowed his eyes. Oh no, it's over. My mouth was faster than my brain. How do I salvage this now? He squeezed my cheek lightly, grinding his teeth as he said each word. Is it that you don't like being in bed, or that you don't like being in bed with me? I blurted out without thinking. Only in bed with you, who else is there to compare with? His hot breath brushed past my ear, his voice deepening dangerously. You still dare to compare? Truly scary. The result of the slip of the tongue was that begging was useless. Making amends didn't work, and even acting spoiled to apologize was completely ignored. This was the first time he truly let loose on me. By the time everything ended, my throat was hoarse, and my whole body went limp in his arms, unable to even move a fingertip. My eyes closed, and I fell asleep immediately, unaware even when he got up to wash and change clothes. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was high. Aju brought food in, sitting by the bed looking at me with worry. Ruby, are you okay? When the prince left, he told us not to make noise, saying you were very tired. I didn't expect you to sleep until now. I slowly sat up, putting on an outer coat, my eyes unfocused. Indeed very tired. This money is truly not easy to earn. Fortunately, the Northern Mongolian military discipline was strict, and for the majority of the time he was not at Water Villa. Otherwise, I might earn this 48 taels of silver, but wouldn't have the life to spend it. From summer to winter, the poplar tree in the main courtyard went from young buds to withered leaves, then dry branches, and bloomed again. Just like that, the seasons changed twice. By calculation, I had been at Water Villa for exactly 2 years. The Water Villa menu had also been copied into the 3rd volume, thick and heavy in my hand. River fish, livestock, poultry, and vegetables were all complete. Currently, I was compiling the dim sum section. Since none of the hired chefs were truly proficient in pastries, the housekeeper specially transferred a person specializing in this from the royal palace. That was a chef named Ding, who used to be the head chef of Vongshuan restaurant in the southern capital. Later, he was recruited into the palace to work in the dim sum bureau of the imperial kitchen. 3 years ago, at a palace banquet, he performed excellently and was rewarded by the emperor to the princess royal. Chef Ding had a thin figure, fair skin, and spoke gently. At first glance, he didn't look like a chef but more like a scholar. Chef Ding was particularly proficient in sophisticated dim sum, such as crab, stuffed sponge cakes, chicken thread rolls, and begonia cakes. Every dish was exquisite and delicious. As soon as he moved to Water Villa, he quickly won everyone's favor, and even captured the affection of many young maids. Aju found an excuse every day to go to the kitchen to watch him make dim sum, and she was so shy that she insisted on dragging me along. I intentionally pinched her cheek, teasing her with a laugh. Chef Ding's dim sum is indeed delicious, but it also makes people fat easily. Aju flushed red and refused to admit defeat, reaching out to pinch my waist back. You eat quite a lot too. Haven't you also become rounder? We laughed and joked as we walked to the small kitchen. Chef Ding had already changed into his chef's attire and was waiting early. Knowing I wanted to learn, not only did he not avoid it, but he was also very generous in teaching. Today we were learning to make lotus cakes. He demonstrated by hand from beginning to end, mixing the filling, kneading the dough, wrapping the dough, and rolling it thin. I watched and followed along. The previous steps were all fine, but when it came to wrapping and rolling the cake, I couldn't grasp the technique and ruined several balls of dough in a row. Chef Ding was extremely patient. He stepped closer, placed a ball of dough in his palm, and held it out in front of me, explaining in detail while gently adjusting my movements to help me. I listened attentively, studying very engrossingly. Just then, a low voice rang out from behind. "What are you two doing?" I didn't bother to look up and replied casually, "Learning to make lotus cakes." But Chef Ding's expression changed. He immediately took a step back, keeping a distance from me, and clasped his hands in greeting. "Your Highness." Only then was I startled. I looked up to meet Prince Ethan's face, which was darkening. He had just returned from the Toya tribe after months of campaigning against the northern barbarians. I had received a victory letter delivered by a hawk a few days ago, but in the letter, he never mentioned that he would stop by Water Villa. At this moment, he was wearing military attire, his body covered in dust, his beard stubbly. I almost didn't recognize him. I blurted out, "Why has the prince arrived?" He huffed coldly. "I came at the wrong time, disturbing you two teaching each other." His gaze swept over Chef Ding, his voice full of sarcasm. Ah, he was jealous again. I secretly laughed, but outwardly I still coaxed him with a gentle voice. "You have had a hard journey, you must be very hungry. You go wash up first, I will make you something to eat." He stood still, his eyes not leaving Chef Ding. Under that cold gaze, Chef Ding's face turned pale, looking as if he was about to collapse. I hurriedly stepped forward to block his line of sight, nudging him lightly with my elbow. "What do you want to eat? Is seaweed mixed noodles okay?" Only then did he shift his gaze to me, observing me once before replying curtly. "Hungry? Then go quickly, I will pull the noodles right away." He glanced at Chef Ding behind the dough table, then reached out to lift my chin. "No rush, eat something else first." After speaking, he leaned down to kiss me. I panicked and raised my two hands covered in oil and flour to block him. "Dirty." He missed the kiss, his patience running out. He conveniently threw me over his shoulder and strode towards the bathroom. "Just wash it clean." I was so angry that I punched his back wildly. "There are people passing by there, put me down." He replied calmly, his voice full of arrogance. "Who doesn't know our relationship? What are you still shy about?" I gritted my teeth. "Humph, what relationship?" "Nothing more than a patron and a mistress kept outside, a relationship that could not be openly declared." Yet he always hung it on his lips. Not only did he not feel ashamed, but he also seemed to take it as something to be proud of. Only when the water in the bathtub had completely cooled did he stop and carry me out. I put on my clothes, personally washed his face, shaved him, changed his shirt, and tied his hair, bit by bit turning a rough warrior, just back from the battlefield, into an elegant and upright nobleman. He stood up from the dressing table, turned to face me, and suddenly reached out to hug my waist, lifting me up to weigh me. I was startled, and as soon as my feet touched the ground, I got angry. "What trick are you playing again?" he tasked. "I went to fight for a few months, and you gained 5 caddies." My heart sank a beat. Chef Ding's crab stuffed sponge cake was indeed delicious, but it was also true that it made one fat easily. He moved closer, his voice dropping low. "Is it that because I wasn't here, you ate an extra 3 bowls of rice?" I swallowed, my face not changing expression. "Of course not. I know the prince likes me plump. Even if I missed you so much that I didn't want to eat, I forced myself to eat enough for 3 meals. Otherwise, if you came back and saw me thin, what if you were unhappy?" He raised his eyebrows. "Missed me so much you didn't want to eat?" He laughed coldly. "Then who is the person in the kitchen?" "Daniel Ding." I replied immediately, intentionally adding, "The Princess Royal likes the lotus cakes he makes the most. I learned to make lotus cakes to write into my menu. And also to conveniently curry favor with the Princess Royal if there is a chance in the future." His expression finally softened. He reached out to rub my head, silent for a moment before saying, "I will have someone teach him some rules." "Teach then, why lean so close?" I breathed a sigh of relief, nodding repeatedly. Yes, we will keep our distance in the future." He reached into his robe, took out an object, and threw it towards me. It was a brocade pouch. I took it. I looked up at him with doubt. He lifted his chin slightly. Open it and see if you like it. I pulled the drawstring. Inside was a mutton fat jade bracelet, smooth and sleek, the color of the jade gentle. Placed in the palm, it still carried warmth. He grabbed my left wrist and personally put the bracelet on me. I thought you would definitely look beautiful wearing this. My eyes were attracted by the bracelet, and I was only startled back to reality when he let go. This thing, seeming to have guessed what I wanted to say, his face immediately darkened as he interrupted. This cannot be exchanged for silver. If you don't want it, give it back to me. Just a glance told me this bracelet was not cheap at all. If exchanged for silver, it would probably be several hundred taels. What a pity. I shook my head. He tightened his grip on my hand, his voice lowering. There is no mark of the royal palace on it. It is not a tribute item. I bought it myself at the treasure pavilion, specifically as a gift for you. Hearing this, my eyes lit up. He curled his lips, but there was no smile in his eyes. But if you dare to sell it for silver, you are dead. The light in my eyes gradually faded. I lowered my head and responded softly. Oh. He pinched the soft flesh on my cheek lightly, his voice carrying a bit of dissatisfaction. Why do you hoard so much silver? Does Water Villa lack food or clothing for you? I can't stay here forever. I said very naturally. I have to plan for the future. He frowned. If you don't stay here, then move to the royal palace. You'll worry even less about shortages. I let out a breath. That is not certain. His eyes flickered slightly, seeming to have thought of something but not saying it out loud. He just lowered his head and placed a very light kiss on the top of my head. The things that should be thought of, both of us had already thought of. The princess of the southern capital had a noble status. She was 12 years old now. In 3 years, she would marry into northern Mongolia and become his rightful official wife. As for me, a mistress who could not be exposed to the light, if I were lucky enough to be tolerated by the princess, I might stay in the royal palace. If not, of course, I would be sent far away. This fate of ours, by calculation, only had 2 or 3 years left. In the autumn of that year, Yun City welcomed a delegation of distinguished guests from the southern capital, the Crown Prince and his entourage. The Crown Prince was patrolling the north on behalf of the Emperor, and everyone in northern Mongolia attached great importance to it. Prince Ethan followed in attendance every day and did not stop by Water Villa anymore. Those big figures and big events had nothing to do with me. I still peacefully continued writing my Water Villa menu. That was the foundation for me to live peacefully in the future. Actually, even if the prince persuaded the princess to take me into the palace as a concubine, I did not desire it in my heart. They were royal relatives, matched in social status, while I was just a commoner squeezing in. It was truly too cramped. Moreover, my heart always remembered my hometown with the rows of green willows by the river. If I saved enough silver, I would return to Yangzhou and open a small restaurant to support myself. If I didn't have enough capital to open a shop, with the skills I had learned over the past few years, I could also work as a head chef in a restaurant. I wouldn't end up wandering the streets. That night, I dreamed again. In the dream, I was only 8 years old, holding my father's hand with my left hand and holding my mother with my right hand. The dim candlelight elongated the shadows of the three of us, intertwining them, seeming as if we would never separate. But in my heart, I knew very well that they were both dead. Sure enough, the person who let go of my hand first was my mother, then my father. He gently shook off my hand and turned to chase after my mother. I watched helplessly as their figures faded, dissolving like the morning mist in spring. I fell to the ground, my body small, tears streaming down uncontrollably. Someone shook me gently, calling softly, "Ruby, Ruby." I woke up with a start. Before my eyes was Prince Ethan's handsome face. His eyes were full of worry. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, conveniently wiped away the cold tears still on my cheeks, and asked in a hoarse voice, "It's this late, why did you come?" There were tiny snowflakes on his hair, and his whole body was freezing cold. Obviously, he had rushed here in the heavy snow. He sat down by my bed, seeming to want to reach out and touch me, but his fingertips paused in mid-air. Finally, he just whispered, "I am about to go to the battlefield again. I came specially to tell you." Over the past years he had frequently gone on campaigns, leaving for 10 days or sometimes a few months. I had long been used to it. Instinctively, I spread my arms to hug him. As soon as I moved, he used a cold finger to lightly touch my forehead. The cold made me shiver, and my mind finally escaped the chaotic aftermath of the nightmare just now. He laughed at my expression. "It's snowing heavily outside. I am very cold. Freeze yourself." I shrank back into the blanket. "When can you return?" I don't know, he replied curtly, then added, I will write to you. I nodded. Then I will send more dried meat to you. Okay. Under the flickering candlelight, the lines of his face softened, his eyes rarely carrying a gentle look. After speaking, he stood up to leave. Reflexively, I grabbed his cloak, holding him back. His steps paused, and he looked down at me. What is it? You must return safely. I held the hem of his cloak tightly, looking up at him. In the past, every time he went to battle, he had never come in the night to say goodbye to me. This time was truly unusual, making my heart uneasy. He laughed and leaned down to hug me through the thick blanket. Don't worry, haven't I returned safely every time? I tilted my face up and placed my lips on his freezing chin. He lowered his head in time, capturing my lips in a deep kiss. When our lips parted, his breathing was heavy, and he cursed softly. Knowing I can't stay tonight, you intentionally seduced me, didn't you? I burrowed into his chest. That's right. He pushed me down onto the bed in frustration. Sleep. I'll settle the score when I get back, don't cry then. I replied lazily. Wait until you get back, then we'll talk. He glanced at me, turned around, opened the door, and left. I sent him off, then didn't sleep a wink all night. The next morning, news arrived that the Crown Prince had combined the Manchu and Mongolian forces to launch an attack at Datsa City, officially starting the northern expedition against the Golden Horde Khanate. Only then did I understand why he had come in such a rush last night. The Golden Horde Khanate bordered the north of our dynasty and had occupied it for many years. Every autumn and winter, they harassed the border. The imperial court defended more than it counterattacked, and the two sides regarded each other as sworn enemies. With the current situation, it was clear that the imperial court wanted to fight a decisive battle to wipe out the great threat in the north. I stayed in Yun City, my heart anxious and uneasy, but the developments on the front line were extremely favorable. Prince Ethan sent back 2 letters every month without interruption. In the letters, he said, the scenery of the Golden Horde Khanate is very beautiful, with vast grass and water. I even encountered desert fox with fluffy fur. At the end of the letter, he casually drew a few crooked strokes, forming a round and silly fox. He also instructed that the dried meat I sent was very delicious, but meat floss would be even more convenient. It was light and easy to carry, and when put into milk to make soup, it was both rich and filling. So remember to make more meat floss next time. I always thought he only reported good news and not the bad. In May of the second year, news of victory indeed came back. The royal army had breached the capital of the Golden Horde Khanate last month. The war that had dragged on for 100 years finally came to an end. I was so happy that I cried, hugging Ju tightly and shouting across the courtyard, saying that this year I could celebrate the Dragon Boat Festival with Prince Ethan. But before the red silk ribbons celebrating the victory in Yun City could be fully hung, a sudden change occurred on the front line. The nobles of the Golden Horde, who had already bowed their heads in submission, suddenly turned their faces. Taking advantage of the time when the royal army was stationed in the capital, they surrounded it from all 4 sides and raised the banner of rebellion. My vision went dark, and I almost collapsed. Fortunately, I later heard the news that Prince Ethan was not among the defensive troops in the capital, so my heart temporarily settled down a bit. But with this, the war was prolonged, and the day of his return became even more uncertain. Another year passed. The imperial court won a great victory, and the allied forces returned in triumph. Good news poured in, and celebrations were held everywhere. However, Water Villa remained as quiet as before, with no sign of him anywhere. My heart burned like fire. Every day I stood at the gate of Villa looking out at the long, empty road, waiting until my throat was dry. Until that day, a strange carriage suddenly appeared in front of the gate of Water Villa. The leading matron got off the carriage and walked directly up to me, her eyes cold but precise. Are you Miss Ruby? I nodded. The Princess Royal has an invitation. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't ask anything more and obediently followed the person onto the carriage, heading straight to the royal palace. On the way, seeing my steps falter, Mama Fan reached out to support me, her voice steady. Don't worry too much, his life is not in danger. The prince has returned to the city, only he was carried back. I took a deep breath. In his dreams he always calls your name. She continued. The Princess Royal couldn't bear to move him, so she invited you to come and take care of him. Hearing this, my heart reluctantly found its rhythm again. The matron gave a few instructions and then gently pushed the door open behind me. I walked in, going around the 6-panel landscape screen, and saw a middle-aged woman with noble appearance sitting by the bed. Hearing the noise, she turned her head, her face calm, with no tears in her eyes. I immediately felt a little more relieved. She smiled. "Ruby, Ethan is injured. I will trouble you to take care of him in the coming days." I curtsied awkwardly and then stepped forward. He was unconscious, his left arm and forehead exposed, wrapped in white bandages. His left leg was suspended high with clean strips of cloth, and his face was so pale that it almost blended into the color of the pillow. I stood frozen, until someone had a handkerchief in front of me. I suddenly woke up. I didn't know when tears had silently flowed down, rolling down my cheeks. I took the handkerchief, my voice hoarse. "I have been rude, please forgive me, Your Highness." "Good child," she said softly, "don't cry. It looks serious, but he isn't missing any arms or legs. After nursing him for a few months, he will be as good as before." The Princess Royal comforted me with a gentle voice. I clutched the handkerchief in my hand tightly, my heart even more dazed. The prince was her own flesh and blood, yet she was still so calm. She covered her mouth and yawned softly, saying, "With you here to watch over him, I will go back to rest first." Last night he called Ruby's name incessantly, so noisy that I couldn't sleep a wink. My face burned hot, and I stammered a reply, only seeing her to the door before returning to sit blankly by the bed. "Ah, if you are tired, just call someone to change shifts. Don't push yourself too hard." The Princess Royal walked a few steps, then turned back to give more instructions. Seeing me nod, she left with peace of mind. Not long after, a medicine boy brought in the medicine. Several maids helped lift him up, and I held a porcelain spoon, feeding him mouthful by mouthful. But his teeth were clenched tight. As soon as the medicine touched his lips, it spilled out, and he didn't drink a single drop. We struggled for a long time, only dirtying his clothes. I couldn't help but suspect, did the Princess Royal exaggerate? With a mouth as hard as a rock like this that couldn't even be pried open, how could he call someone's name? A maid timidly whispered, "Perhaps the young lady should use her mouth." I raised my hand to stop her. Even a spoon couldn't open it, my mouth wasn't made of steel. Bringing a bamboo tube over, I finally managed to reluctantly feed the medicine in. After taking care of him for several consecutive days, I realized the Princess Royal didn't exaggerate at all. In the middle of the night, he indeed always deliriously called my name, so I intentionally stayed up at night to keep watch. On the third night, my fingertips were suddenly grabbed. I looked up with a start, meeting a pair of deep black eyes that had opened at some point. He curled his lip and called, softly, "Ruby." My eyes felt hot, and I suppressed it to reply, "You're finally awake." He lifted his uninjured arm, slowly wiping the tears from my cheek, his voice hoarse but warm. "Don't cry, I have returned alive." After waking up, he could take medicine by himself, and his eating gradually returned to normal. His strength recovered much faster. True to what the Princess Royal said, the wounds looked fierce, but most were just superficial injuries. In less than a month, he could walk leisurely. That day, Mama Fan came to call me, saying the Princess Royal wanted to meet. Coincidentally, the prince was called away by the northern Mongolian king, so I went to Yunhua Pavilion alone. When I entered, the Princess Royal was holding golden scissors, trimming flower branches. Hearing the noise, she didn't beat around the bush and spoke frankly. "Ruby, intermarriage between the Manchus and Mongols is an old rule. Princess Camellia has married the crown prince, so Ethan must marry the princess. Now that the princess has turned 14, the marriage should also be brought up for discussion. What about you? Have you thought it through?" The day finally came. I lowered my head, feeling as if my heart was being squeezed by an invisible hand. My chest felt heavy, and breathing became difficult. I opened my mouth, but my throat was dry and raspy and I couldn't utter a single word. Seeing my silence, the Princess Royal sighed softly. "I know you two have feelings for each other, but in this world, having feelings doesn't mean it will definitely lead to a result." I finally found my voice. I heard myself calmly say each word. "I will leave him." Her eyes trembled slightly, and after a long while, she slowly replied, "It is best that you think this way. It's not that I don't want to help, but whether you stay or go, the decision doesn't lie in my hands but belongs to the princess." "I understand." I tried to keep my voice steady, not revealing the choke in my throat. The Princess Royal frowned slightly, seeming not to want to be the one to break up a couple. A look of fatigue flashed across her face. "You may withdraw." I had just left Yunhua Pavilion not far when I ran into Prince Ethan. His face darkened. Without saying a word, he grabbed my hand and pulled me along. "Follow me." Before I could understand what was happening, I was taken straight onto a carriage back to Water Villa. As soon as we entered the main courtyard, he let go of my hand and turned to ask, "My mother sought you out." "Yes," I nodded. He frowned, his chest heaving visibly. "What did she say?" I blinked, trying to look relaxed. I originally thought the Princess Royal would say something like, "I'll give you 5,000 tals to leave my son." If it were really like that, I would have replied, "But the prince is the greatest love of my life." His brows knitted tighter. And then, I said with a serious face, very decisively, "So if I have to leave him, the price must be higher, at least triple." Prince Ethan laughed out of anger. That smile sent chills down one's spine. The corners of his lips curled up, but his eyes were like hidden sharp blades, cutting slowly and cruelly. "Worthy of you." His voice turned cold. "So if my mother didn't mention money, what did you say?" I let out a long breath. "She said intermarriage between the Manchus and Mongols is an old rule, you must marry the princess." You can guess the words that followed. "So what can I, a commoner orphan of low status, say?" Prince Ethan fell silent. Between us, something invisible seemed to slowly spread, separating two people who were only inches apart. He closed his eyes slightly and raised his hand to support his forehead. "It is I who have wronged you. 4 years ago, that night, I shouldn't have touched you." A vague sense of comfort rose in my heart. At least he no longer considered this a matter that could be easily arranged, no longer thought that as long as I quietly remained a mistress or humbled myself to be a lowly concubine, he could enjoy the best of both worlds. I shook my head. "Don't say that. Let me tell you a secret, okay?" He looked at me, his eyes calm as an abyss, without a single ripple. I spoke slowly. "My real name is Sarah, and my hometown is Yangzhou. My father was the manager and head chef of Joyful Scent restaurant. He was the disciple of a famous Jiangnan chef, proficient in Huaiyang cuisine. His most famous dish," I laughed softly, "was the whole feast of pufferfish. Cold dishes, hot dishes, all used pufferfish as the main ingredient. From Buddha jumps over the wall, Shi cream, Wensi pufferfish to pufferfish steamed buns." I paused for a moment, my voice softening. I liked the Wensi pufferfish he made the best. The broth was clear, the back meat of the fish sliced as thin as silk, arranged at the bottom of a white porcelain bowl. On top were young bean sprouts and light pink meat floss, dotted with green shredded vegetables, and finally sprinkled with a thin layer of powder. "Just one dish," I whispered. Through his hands, it became so beautiful that people couldn't bear to move their chopsticks. Prince Ethan's face showed no surprise. On the contrary, a flash of unconcealed pain appeared. I choked up as I continued. When eating, the piece of fish was soft and smooth, sliding straight down the throat. Reaching the stomach, the tip of the tongue only had time to feel a fleeting taste of fresh and pure tenderness. That was the most delicious dish I have ever tasted in my life. I stopped for a moment before continuing the story. The year I was 8, the Liu family of Dongheng residents wanted to open a branch in Yangzhou. The person who presided over it was Master Lucas. At that time, my father was the top chef in Yangzhou and also held the position of president of the restaurant association in the city. According to custom, Master Lucas visited and expressed his intention to buy my family's Joyful Scent restaurant. It was my father's life's work, so he flatly refused. Master Lucas did not get angry. He just laughed, left a heavy gift, and leisurely departed. Not long after, he held a grand banquet right at Joyful Scent restaurant, inviting almost all the celebrities and nobles in the city. That banquet featured pufferfish as the main theme, and my father personally cooked. But on that very day, 4 guests at the banquet died one after another. The Yeoman immediately investigated. After the autopsy, the conclusion was that the pufferfish was not cleaned properly, causing poisoning and death. My father, who had never made a mistake in his life, suddenly had to bear 4 human lives on his back. The family property was completely drained, selling everything off, and only then was the case barely settled. But my mother fell ill from resentment and passed away not long after. My father suffered too great a blow and didn't live much longer either, quickly following her. So many years have passed, but every time I mention it, my heart still feels like it is being clawed incessantly by a rusty steel knife, cutting into my heart piece by piece, painful to the point of flesh and blood mixing, seeping into the marrow. Prince Ethan's brows furrowed tightly, seeming to want to step forward and hug me. I raised my hand to stop him, holding onto the table to sit down. My voice slow but clear. After my family was shattered, I was adopted by my father's master and learned cooking from him for 2 years. But he was old, and by the year I was 10, he fell seriously ill. Before he passed away, he asked me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted revenge. I laughed softly, a cold smile. My grandmaster shook his head and smiled bitterly, but, in the end, he still helped me arrange the path, getting me into the Liu family. From then on, I changed my name to Ruby and became a small kitchen maid specializing in medicinal food in the Liu Manor's private kitchen. Master Lucas accidentally tasted the medicinal food I cooked and became addicted to it. He personally designated me to serve by his side. Up until 4 years ago, I looked at Prince Ethan and smiled slightly. From the age of 10 to 18, I secretly poisoned him, day after day for a full 8 years, bit by bit wearing down his foundation. On the night of the banquet at the hot spring, I said slowly, I used the strongest medicine to trigger all the illnesses that had accumulated over the years. Prince Ethan knelt down in front of me, tightly holding my trembling hands. Only then did I realize that not only my fingertips but my entire body was losing control, trembling continuously. His voice was hoarse. Ruby, don't say any more. No. I shook my head, clenching my fists tight. I must say it. This is the thing I am most proud of in my life. I looked up at him. I knew very well that I just needed to wait for Master Lucas to die of illness, then the next person could very well be me. Even if I didn't poison him, even if I was careful in every step, for people in high positions like them, if they want to condemn someone, why do they need evidence? Let alone that I was the person with the greatest suspicion. The day I brought the sobering soup to you, actually, I had already prepared myself. Ju once told me that in the storybooks she read, the intimacy between a man and a woman is the greatest joy in life. When I saw you seeking pleasure, I thought, since I am going to die anyway, what's the harm in trying it once before dying? I leaned my forehead against his and smiled softly. Prince Ethan, I have never regretted that night. Thank you for saving me, and thank you for protecting me when the Liu family demanded me back that year. He suddenly stood up and hugged me tightly, with such force that I felt pain. His voice trembled, almost collapsing. I will go to the palace, kneel before His Majesty to break off the engagement. I don't need the status of a prince anymore. I only want to marry you. Ruby, don't leave me. I held onto his arm, smiling faintly, though my heart ached. Prince Ethan, I am not saying these things to beg for your pity. I only want you not to apologize for that first night, nor to feel guilty. I am truly grateful to heaven for giving us 4 years of destiny. Don't worry. I won't live a bad life after I leave. I am very capable and very smart. I paused for a moment and then joked, if you are truly worried, then give me some silver for my traveling expenses. It was clearly a joke, but my chest felt a dull, lingering pain. Finally, he let me go and lowered his head to kiss me deeply. Something cold and wet touched my cheek. I wasn't crying, so was it Ethan who was crying? A man like him actually knew how to cry. I wrapped my arms around his neck, responding to that kiss with all my remaining warmth. That night, we were inseparable. Both of us understood clearly that the future was destined to part ways. Like sand slipping through fingers, the tighter one tried to hold, the faster it flowed. We could only desperately engrave every moment into our hearts. Ethan, Ethan? I called his name incessantly, wanting to carve it into my soul. Ruby, I am here. He patiently replied, time after time. The next day, he personally brushed my hair, did my makeup, and then sent me out of the city. He let Ju follow me and gave me an additional 20,000 silver taels in banknotes, which, combined with the silver I had saved over the years, was enough for me to live peacefully anywhere. Ju got onto the carriage and reached out to pull me up. I stepped onto the footboard and turned back to see him standing there, motionless, my heart suddenly constricted. I jumped off the carriage, taking 3 steps in 2, and threw myself into his arms. You must live well and I will live well too. I spoke close to his ear. His voice was so gentle it made me want to burst into tears. Goodbye. I suppressed my tears and replied, goodbye. Goodbye, was actually a final farewell. In the carriage heading south, I curled up in Ju's arms and sobbed bitterly until my voice was hoarse and my strength was exhausted. She held me tight, comforting me non-stop, saying that from now on she would always be by my side. Once things were settled, she would definitely arrange a blind date for me and choose a handsome, upright husband. She even joked that, with the silver I carried, men wanting to marry into the family would surely line up from the West Lake to the Qinyuai River. Each one would have a face more beautiful than Pan An and exceptional talent. Those clumsy words of comfort lasted all along the road until I finally burst into laughter. The sound of the carriage wheels clattered incessantly. After 10 years of being away, I set foot in my hometown, Yangzhou. The joyful scent restaurant had once been replaced by Master Lucas's business on my father's old land, but it still existed weekly. I chose a tea house across the street and watched quietly for several days. The grand gate was cold, and customers were sparse, showing no signs of life. I heard that years ago, that place had a patron to keep it steady, but after Master Lucas died, the support was gone, and the business quickly declined. I took the initiative to find the manager and stated my intention to buy back the shop at a fair price, without coercion. After some consideration, he nodded in agreement. This dynasty had two saints reigning together. The Empress held the reins of internal affairs and always encouraged women's education and female-led households. Even as a single woman, I could legally establish a business household and rightfully be the master of my own domain. In the summer when I turned 22, the Joyful Scent restaurant officially reopened. Red firecrackers exploded, wine banners fluttered, and customers flowed in and out without ceasing. I stood under the eaves, watching the bustling crowd, and silently said in my heart, "Father, Mother, Sarah has come home." A year later I was calculating the accounts, vaguely wondering when the princess of the southern capital would reach the age of majority and get married, when I suddenly heard several customers excitedly discussing a major event in the southern capital. My hand holding the brush paused, and I instinctively tilted my ear to listen. One man raised his wine cup, his voice full of excitement. After Princess Wen's coming-of-age ceremony, the emperor issued a decree appointing her as the crown heir. Someone choked on their wine and immediately retorted, "Are you drunk? Where did this rumor come from? The crown prince is still there, and he just achieved great merit by conquering the Golden Horde Khanate. How could the emperor bypass him?" The first man tossed, looking mysterious. "You don't know about this. The crown prince has left the court. He went north to chase after the princess of the West Forest tribe." "So what?" The person opposite sneered. "Patrolling the border is a common duty. No matter how much he likes that princess, at most he can just marry both into the Eastern Palace." The first man laughed heartily, not arguing further. "Believe it or not, in 2 days the official announcements will be pasted all over the city walls." He spoke with absolute certainty, and although the others were still skeptical, someone muttered, "Is there really a man who loves beauty more than his kingdom?" I stood frozen on the spot, my mind blank. If the princess had become the crown heir, naturally she could no longer marry into northern Mongolia. Then, what about Ethan? Would he marry the daughter of a high-ranking official in the southern capital? Or a lady from the northern Mongolian tribes? Or would he have to be married off to the southern capital? As that thought flashed by, I shivered. Prince Ethan wearing wedding robes and a head covering, stepping down from a bridal sedan. Just the thought made my skin crawl. The next day, Aju rushed in panting, and without a word, she grabbed my hand and pulled me along. The brush in my hand hadn't even been put down before I was pulled up. "What are you doing?" I asked hurriedly. "The news is true," Aju almost screamed. "It's really true." She pulled me through the long street and squeezed into the dense crowd. Sure enough, an official notice was hung high on the city wall, with sharp black ink on yellow paper. The decree announced the deposition of the crown prince, and the appointment of the princess as the successor, who would leave the palace to establish her own residence and participate in government affairs. My ears rang, and the crowd's chattering gradually faded as they dispersed, leaving a chaotic empty space before my eyes. Only then did I feel like I was waking from a dream. I turned around, my steps faltering. Outside the crowd, Chef Wang was holding a child, frowning and shouting loudly. The manager went out without saying a word. Nina woke up and kept crying. "I searched everywhere before finding you." The child, barely over 100 days old, was crying until her voice was hoarse in his arms, her face red, looking truly pitiful. I dazedly reached out to take the child, instinctively asking, "It's mealtime, why did you leave?" He glared at me. "You and Ashju are less reliable than anyone. If I didn't watch her, would I let her cry herself to death?" "I'm sorry," I whispered. Ashju also lowered her head, not daring to utter a word. The four of us walked into the Joyful Scent restaurant. The inside was packed with customers who had clearly come to eat but had been left unattended for a while. Chef Wang immediately shouted to reassure them. "Guests, don't be anxious. We are back. Call out whatever you want." I looked up, and amidst that noisy sea of people, I caught sight of a back that was familiar to my very bones. Time seemed to stretch at that moment. The person slowly turned around, and the face revealed under the light had sharp, familiar features that were painfully recognizable. My heart stopped. Ethan. His gaze first fell on the child in my arms, then shifted to Chef Wang standing close by, who still had a hospitable smile for the customers. The smile on Ethan's face froze and hardened. Chef Wang didn't notice anything unusual. He took a step forward and asked with a smile, "Guest, please sit here. What would you like?" Ethan looked at him, his eyes so cold it made others shiver, his teeth clenched as words burst from his throat. "Get out." Chef Wang froze. "You." Ajo reacted extremely quickly. She rushed out, grabbed Chef Wang's arm tightly, and dragged him straight into the back kitchen. In the hall, the atmosphere felt as if the air had been sucked out. The back of Ethan's hand was bulging with green veins, and his chest was heaving violently. I suddenly understood his misunderstanding and hurriedly took a step forward, pointing at the child in my arms. "Your child." Then I pointed toward the kitchen. "Head chef." Ethan was stunned, a look of blankness, almost like stupidity, appeared on his face. For the first time, I saw him with an expression like his pressure points had been struck, standing frozen on the spot. I stepped closer so he could see the child in my arms clearly. "Her name is Nina." Nini, he murmured as if sleepwalking, then like cradling a rare treasure, he slowly took that soft little body. The child opened her eyes and let out a shrill cry. At that moment, Ethan looked like he was facing a great enemy. His whole body went stiff, and his voice almost panicked. "Ruby, she's crying. Look, she's crying." I hurriedly took the child back, comforting her while saying, "Children at this age all cry like this." He frowned, clearly unable to accept it. "She cried as soon as she saw me. Does she not like me?" My lips twitched slightly. "Maybe she's hungry, or needs a diaper change, or simply wants to cry a bit. It has nothing to do with you." After a while of being coaxed, the child sucked her finger and slowly fell asleep. The restaurant was crowded, so I signaled with my eyes for him to come outside with me. It was May, a warm breeze blew gently, and 100 flowers were in bloom. It was the most beautiful time in Yangzhou. We walked shoulder to shoulder under the dappled shadows of the willows by the river. I spoke first. "Why did you come to Yangzhou?" He turned to look at me. "If I hadn't come, would I have never known you gave birth to Nini?" My face turned hot. "I took contraceptive medicine every time, only that one time I forgot." "I don't blame you." He spoke slowly. "I came to Yangzhou to tell you that the princess and I no longer have any relationship." I stopped and looked down at the sleeping face of the child. "So what?" A hand was placed on my shoulder, his voice deep and firm. "I will not marry the daughter of a southern capital official, nor will I marry a lady from the northern Mongolian tribes. The person I want to marry, from beginning to end, there is only one." A huge wave rose in my heart. It turned out that joy, when too intense, could also bring a sharp pain. Will she agree to marry me, to be my only wife? My throat tightened, and I couldn't say a word, my eyes burned. He lifted my chin, forcing me to look directly into his eyes, and asked again, "Will she agree?" I bit my lip. "Do the king and the princess royal agree?" He laughed. "If I hadn't resolved all obstacles, I wouldn't be standing before you saying these words. So, do you agree?" I thought for a long time, and then shook my head slightly. The certain smile on Ethan's face instantly cracked, and finally asked, "Why? Now?" "Not yet," I said slowly. "The Joyful Scent restaurant is in its development stage. I want to follow the Liu family's example and open Joyful Scent restaurants all over the north and south." He looked like he had just been defeated. "That doesn't conflict with you marrying me?" "It does," I replied very calmly. "It takes a lot of effort. I'd have time to take care of you." The hand on my shoulder slowly dropped. He lowered his head, his voice carrying a rare sense of exhaustion. "Fine." After speaking, he turned to leave. That tall back stretched under the sunlight, looking so lonely that it made one unable to look any longer. My heart tightened. I stepped up quickly and grabbed his sleeve. "I plan to open the second shop in Yin City. Does the prince agree?" He turned his head, and in that moment, his eyes suddenly brightened, like a person who had just been pulled back from the brink. He reached out and pinched my cheek lightly, grinding his teeth. He said, "Are you teasing me?" "No." I shook my head. "Since I delayed you from marrying noble ladies and tribal princesses, I will compensate you with a wealthy businesswoman. How about it?" He tightened his grip on my hand, every word spoken with utter sincerity. "As long as it's you, anything is fine." I held Nina in my arms, and with my other hand, I held Ethan's hand. As we walked together under the warm early summer sun, I whispered in my heart to those who had passed away, "Father, Mother, Look, Sarah finally has a home. The story of Ruby and Ethan teaches us that true dignity lies not in titles but in self-reliance. Ruby refused to be defined by her tragic past or reduced to a hidden mistress, choosing instead to build her own empire from the ashes. Her journey proves that love should never come at the cost of one's self-respect. Furthermore, it highlights that the most enduring connections are those where partners have the patience to grow separately until they can stand side by side as equals. Ultimately, true love is not about possession, it is about the freedom to choose each other when the time is right. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.